Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Arlington Board of Selectmen for October 16th, 2017. We're meeting at 7:15 p.m. in the Selectmen's Chambers on the second floor of Town Hall on Massachusetts Avenue in Arlington, Massachusetts. I'm Chair Joseph Curo. I'm joined by my colleagues, Vice Chair Stephen Byrne, Kevin Greeley, Diane Mahan, and Dan Dunn, and we are supported in our work this evening by the Town Manager Adam Chapdelaine, the Town Council Douglas Heim, and our Board Administrator Marie Kropelka. To begin the meeting this evening, I'd first like to extend, on behalf of the board, our deepest condolences to our colleague, Mr. Byrne, on the loss of your grandmother. I know that you were very close to her and that she was really the matriarch of a family that's really given a lot of service to this town, so I know that we all join in extending those condolences and hope you'll extend them to your family on our behalf.
Thank you. If I would just add, I know that we have millions of viewers watching at home, but we're certainly missing one tonight because I don't think she missed a meeting. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so sorry.
I also would like to remember, since we last met, we also lost another member of a family that's given a lot of service to the town. Deputy Chief Steve Porcello did pass away after an illness, and we certainly, I think we're all very familiar with his son, Inspector Porcello, who has appeared before us a number of times, and certainly our condolences go out to the Porcello family as well. So with your indulgence, I'd like to ask for a brief moment of silence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
I should have noted Deputy Fire Chief Steve Porcello. I don't think I made that clear for anyone who's watching. First up, we have the consent agenda. First, we have minutes of meetings, September 25th, 2017. Request, permit for Veterans Day Parade, Saturday, November 11th. Jeffrey A. Chunglo, Director of Veterans Services. Request, special one-day beer and wine license, 10/22/17 at Robbins Memorial Town Hall for a private event. Erica Siegel and Daniel Salomon. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Byrne. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll give it to Mr. Greeley.
Mr. Greeley, go for it.
Seconded by Mr. Greeley. Any comments or questions? And anyone here representing any of these items? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, we move on to Zoning Board of Appeals Associate Member, Kevin M. Mills, term to expire 10/1/2020, and this was tabled from our last meeting. If you want to come up to the mic, Mr. Mills. As my colleagues know, we had two vacancies for the zoning, the microphone right there, yeah. We had two vacancies for the Zoning Board of Appeals Associate membership positions. I did conduct interviews with 5 candidates. I was assisted in this by Ms. Kropelka and Ms. Marr from our office, as well as Mr. Quinn, the chair of the ZBA, joined and assisted in the interviews. We made one of the appointments at the last meeting. I'm recommending to you the appointment of Mr. Mills. He had recently retired from a long career as a technical manager for a number of companies, exhibited a lot of analytic skills in that realm, but also, as or more importantly, has served on Arlington Town meetings since 1999. So 18 years of town meeting experience, has seen kind of the evolution of the town zoning bylaws and some of the priorities we've put forward, and that were some of the positions the town meeting has taken, in regards to MUGAR, et cetera. So I'd like to give Mr. Mills an opportunity, if you want to just say a few words about why you're interested in the position.
I've been a lifelong resident of Arlington, and as you say, in town meeting, I've been exposed to some of the zoning matters that have gone on historically, SIMs, et cetera, how those things are panned out. I'm very aware of what's going up on Route 2 now and how that would impinge on the town. So I'd like to be involved in that.
Great. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Mr. Dunn?
First of all, thank you very much. Really, it is
You're
a great,
welcome.
it's a great service to help us out, particularly in this important role. Something I've told every other member of the Zoning Board of Appeals who's come to us is, and it relates to the Mugar property, is that the decision that the ZBA writes is going, the details and the nuance and the language of it is going to be something that's probably going to end up being litigated for years, and it's something that we have to get right. And so I just want to make sure that, like I want to extend an offer that you get the resources that you need through the town manager, through us and through the town manager. And if you ever sit down in a meeting or you walk out of a meeting and you say, you know, we need more help on this, or we need the more professional assistance, or we need more something like that, please raise your hand and shout and scream until you get it, because we have to get that decision right.
We'll be taken care of by town council over here, I hope.
Yes, him and more. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Mr.
No, move approval, and thank you for the service you've already provided to the town and are willing to continue. God bless you, Kev.
Ms. Mahan?
Second, and also, you're very well versed with this in terms of serving in town meetings since 1999. Sort of piggybacking on Mr. Dunn's comments in terms of resources and what's coming up ahead. One of the things that our chairman, Mr. Curo, when he was interviewing different people, and ultimately offered you the position, and thankfully you accepted, is as you go through the process with your fellow committee members, as you know, it's going to be a little bit trying or taxing. And I know from your experience in town meeting, as well as your resume, curriculum vitae, whatever is the appropriate term, one of the penultimate things that I would sort of advocate for, that your experience demonstrates, is that you're going to have the fine balancing act of making sure that both sides, whether it's 2 or 3 sides, are adequately given the opportunity to present their testimony, information, et cetera. And my thing is, you can never go wrong. Not that I'm trying to make your meetings longer than they should be. You have Ashley Marr, who also works with the Selectmen's office, that can aid you, but I'm definitely looking towards your expertise in your background in terms of, as Mr. Dunn cited, in terms of any possible legal situations that may occur in the future. The number one thing that I think you demonstrate will be that you will definitely have the patience to make sure all parties are heard, whether it's 2 or 3. As well as making sure it's civil and respectful. And when it's not, I certainly know from your tenacity at town meeting and others, and your respectful discourse at town meeting, you, along with your committee members, will be able to get a handle on that. Because while we want everyone to have the opportunity on any future items in terms of what comes before the Zoning Board of Appeals, especially the East Arlington issue, you have a high wire act, and I know you're prepared for it. And again, like Mr. Dunn said, any assistance you need in the future, whether it's the administrator, Ashley Marr, or the town manager or ourselves, please let us know. So, and thank you for doing this. It's going to be a substantial time commitment, and we definitely appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for one of the things I did as chairman last time that I had never done before. Mr. Gurley and others had done. I think Mr. Dunn had also was interview for the Zoning Board of Appeals. And when I first got on the board in '99, hadn't had that for a long while, but it's definitely a very important position, like other town positions. So I want to thank Mr. Curo for going through this process and putting this candidate who's willing to serve in this role.
Thank you, Ms. Mahan. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, on a motion by Mr. Corelli, seconded by Ms. Mahan. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to serving.
Just want to go down and get sworn in at the town clerks. You want to get sworn in at the town clerks.
Now,
Marie will let you know.
business hours,
She'll
Monday
take
through
care of it.
Friday, yes.
Take care, John.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it's catching.
I have a tickle, a feather in my throat, so I apologize.
We now move on to citizens' open forum. Except in unusual circumstances, any matter presented for consideration of the board shall neither be acted upon nor a decision made the night of the presentation in accordance with the policy under which the open forum was established. It should be noted that there is a 3-minute time limit to present a concern or request. Do we have anyone signed up?
Chris Loretti has signed up.
Yeah, Mr. Loretti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Loretti. I'm here again to talk to you about lobbying by town officials. Recently, I learned that a member of the Board of Selectmen is working for a Boston lobbying firm. I think that is wrong. Professional lobbyists should not be allowed to hold elected or appointed offices here in Arlington. I come here to ask you to develop regulations to prohibit Arlington officials from working as lobbyists while they hold office here in town and for some period thereafter. As you know, it's common for members of Congress and state legislators to become lobbyists, but it's unheard of for them to continue in their role as legislators or congressmen or congresspeople while they're serving as a lobbyist. It doesn't happen at the federal or state level. I don't think it should happen at the local level. Unless you think it won't be a problem to have a lobbyist on your board, I believe it already has been one. And I would point to the board's approval of the medical marijuana dispensary here in town. It struck me that the board really bent over backwards to accommodate the applicant. And it seems the selectman most aggressive in promoting the applicant has been the selectman lobbyist. For example, he was a petitioner on a self-serving zoning bylaw change proposed by the applicant, and he has assisted the applicant's lobbying firm. Now he is working for that very same lobbying firm. This raises serious ethical questions for me, and I want to tell you, so serious that I filed a complaint with the State Ethics Commission so that they can fully investigate his activities and determine whether any of his actions have amounted to a violation of the state ethics law. Now, I'm not asking your board to do anything about that matter. The State Ethics Commission will take care of that. But I am asking you to take action to prevent such questions from even arising in the future by prohibiting town officials from working as lobbyists while employed by the town and for at least a year thereafter. Specifically, I request that you submit a warrant article at the next town meeting that does just that, or take some other action that has the equivalent effect. Mayor Walsh has recognized the weakness of the state law as it pertains to municipal lobbying in Boston. I believe you need to do the same thing in Arlington. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for citizen open forum?
Is the woman, are you here to speak or anything?
Okay. We now move on to correspondence received. Concerns regarding abandoned house at 821 Massachusetts Avenue. Maria Klatecki, Secretary of First Baptist Church of Arlington. Do I have a motion?
Move receipt and suggest that we refer it to, in the inspections office through the town manager.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Is that okay, Adam? Is that appropriate?
Absolutely. May I?
Yeah, please, Mr.
In fact, if not this exact correspondence, a similar correspondence, I believe, from the parish had already been received by my office, and the Assistant Town Manager, Jim Feeney, had begun to respond. And I'll have to verify whether or not he's responded already, but I know we have made some efforts to try to, at least in the short term, remedy some of their concerns.
Okay, great. Anything else? Yeah. Councilman.
Just want to disclose, I'm a member of this church. I'm very, I'm extremely aware of the issues of concern around this. And we appreciate, through the Board of Selectmen, I'm assuming I don't have any conflict about speaking about this, as well as Mr. Feeney and the town manager really looking into this. But this has been a somewhat long-standing issue. Initially, it was an issue of, I don't want to say dilapidation, but
Yeah.
you know, but now it's kind of progressed a little step further in terms of alleged vandalism and other activities. But I definitely feel confident that the town manager, with Mr. Feeney and others, will, and have been, and will continue to look into this and make any recommendations, if appropriate, to the board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Correspondence received. So just to make clear, we're going to do new business now, and then I'm going to ask for a motion on the executive session, which we're going to go into, and I'm going to ask for a motion where we exit only for the purposes of adjournment. So we're first going to go through new business. Ms. Kropelka? Mr. Heim?
Two quick things. One is, there are some new open meeting law regulations, not laws. The law has not changed, but the Division of Open Government refined the regulations that are operative. And mostly, the most important things about it are not super relevant to Arlington because we already do most of our notices by posting on a website. The most significant change is probably a more workable standard for remote participation. So I'll give the selectmen a summary of those changes.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Chapdelaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few items, but I'll actually build off one, what Town Council just mentioned. Coming off the goal-setting session of the board, I did convene a meeting of David Good and Norm McLeod from ACMi, as well as some of the staff from ACMi, to start talking about remote participation from a technical perspective, both for the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. So we are actually actively working on that as well. So we haven't talked about it, but hopefully that change in the regulations might even make it easier. We'll see. I just want to run through a couple things. First off, tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall, we are having the second public hearing on the Lake Street Bikeway intersection signalization project. The design is at 75%, so we want to get further feedback from the public before finalizing the design. We have applied by the deadline for the Complete Streets Grant using the 25% design, which is what you need to apply for a Complete Streets Grant. So we have that in the queue. So that event is tomorrow night. Wednesday night, we're having the second zoning recodification working group public hearing for further feedback on the third reading draft of the zoning recodification, and that is at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Wednesday night. Lake Street was tomorrow night at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. as well. Both at 7 p.m. Lake Street Tuesday, zoning Wednesday. So busy week at Town Hall, trying to move a couple big projects forward. Additionally, I wanted to let the board know, we just got word late last week, we received a municipal energy technical assistance grant from the Division of Energy Resources to study battery storage in municipal facilities. So we're going to look at the Thompson School, the Gibbs School, the high school, and the DPW facility at the feasibility of getting battery storage so that when we generate electricity via solar panels that are either at those schools now or will be there in the future, we can store that, use it both for emergency situations, but also to potentially shave peak demand so that we're getting a consistent value out of any investment that would be made in storage, battery storage facilities. Just met prior to this meeting with the newly expanded bike share working group. So to follow up on some of the discussions we've had with the board earlier this year. We've expanded the group. The MAPC has taken a leadership position on trying to pull together a number of surrounding communities on a regional procurement for dockless bike share, so we're spinning those things into motion quite quickly. And then finally, Saturday, I know there's a lot going on in town, but I was able to take my daughter to the open house at the Central Fire Station, which was really just a great event. The guys did a great job. It was a very friendly atmosphere. They were letting kids shoot the water hose and teaching them about hazards in a house and letting them crawl in the fire trucks and the ambulance, and it was a nice event. Everybody, all the kids left with little junior firefighter fake tattoos. So that was the cool takeaway that all the kids got. So
Did she ride the pole?
she did. She didn't, but one of the firefighters came down the pole and in front of like 70 people put on all his gear as fast as he could.
My Lord.
So definitely like a lot of pressure on him to get it done fast. So.
And one sat up in front, on the fire truck, and they had the hose.
I missed that, but if they
Oh,
did
sorry.
that.
It was fun. There was a big crowd. I'm sorry.
But it was a great event. I just wanted to thank the fire department for that community outreach. It was really nice. Thank you.
Mr. Greeley.
Yeah, we already have expressed our condolences to Stephen and Michael with their loss. And Stephen mentioned how his grandmother never missed a meeting. And watching it, I am sure she is proud of how he has conducted himself. He is an excellent selectman, and I hope he's here for years to come. I just couldn't keep quiet, sorry.
I second that.
I wanted to say something, but I know it's better not to. But he's a good one. Sorry.
Ms. Mahana.
I agree with you, Mr. Greeley, and I'm certainly appreciative of benefit of all my colleagues who serve on the board, and certainly Mr. Byrne, who I hold in high esteem along with the rest of my colleagues. Just a few things, because it's a short meeting tonight, so I can sort of throw some things in. Just because I just want to bring up issues that were discussed sort of the tail end of my chairmanship. that I passed on to Mr. Curl that were through the chairman and the town manager, and I believe Mrs. Kropelka on the first one, we're going to perhaps kick in this fall. Last year, when we had the early voting, and it was here in Town Hall, and the issue of responsibilities and delineation, and what's the best way to, which I think we did a fantastic job, but we were kind of like flying at the end of our skirt in terms of getting things done. So to the chairman and the town manager and Mrs. Kropelka, when you three deem appropriate, and anyone else, I imagine someone from the town clerk's office could, and Mr. Cura and I had discussed this, and there's probably been conversations anyways, but if we could really definitively delineate what tasks need to be done, who are the task masters, et cetera, you know.
Yeah, we included this actually in our goals for this year too, and so I think that,
Sorry.
I think that I mean, without deliberating, we can't get into deliberation, but my thinking on this is to have a discussion first with the parties and try to reach some kind of a memorandum of understanding.
We're gonna do, in November, I have a sort of earmarked to see what our schedule is to meet with Kevin.
Yeah.
And I gave the whole farm to Kevin, refresh my memory. He's been warden for us. Judge Parsons is going over that whole thing and deleting things that shouldn't take place and what have you. So hopefully he'll be ready and we'll sit down and discuss it.
Okay, so if I could leave it with the chairman and the town manager, my thing is I just don't want to, not that things didn't work out appropriately or efficiently, because they did, but I'd like to, now that we have the time, when the chairman and the town manager, you know where I'm going with this?
Oh,
like-
totally, yeah.
Okay, and then I do want to thank the chairman and the town manager and Jim Feeney and others in terms of the Webb Cowett Road situation. I've heard back from over a dozen people, as the rest of my colleagues have on the board, whether it's face-to-face, email, in terms of taking that situation seriously, as well as, I do need to say, for Mr. Lombardi, and I'm blanking on the other developer's name, Bradley, who were cognizant and recognized the issue and definitely took it very seriously. And I think it sent a good message in terms of, I know, you know, my mom and dad live downstairs on the first floor, and they're like, oh, trees, but they love trees now, so. And it's not just about trees, it's about, I think, penultimate in terms of all of us getting on the board, it's in terms of Arlington as a community and what people expect, and when things don't work out right, that we define the issue and set out a course of the way it should go. So I definitely want to thank the town manager, Mr. Feeney, and anybody else for that, because I think it was considered and acted upon more than appropriately. And that's a lot, I've heard from a lot of people that don't live on Webb Cowett saying, you know, I really appreciate the board's deliberations, and you know, some may say it's just a tree issue, but it's not. It's a community issue, quality of life, and everybody on all sides got that. Two other things, I guess I'll do one before the other. I have been approached by, and I've had very little, if no, involvement in terms of, as of right now, the Arlington High School study in terms of renovation, rebuild, et cetera. Several people have approached me about, you know, why are we putting parking on the lawn of the front of Arlington High School? I know nothing about this, so I would like to put in the chairman and the town manager's platter, ballywick, in terms of when both of you think is appropriate, recognizing we're not the school committee, Arlington High School is not directly under the purview of the Board of Selectmen, but when an agenda item is not applicable, appropriate to basically discuss it, and maybe it's at a school enrollment task force meeting or something else exactly. A lot of people are asking me about, you know, there's the group organizing around a pool at AHS, and there's all sort of different entities going on that. Mr. Curo, can you help me on this?
My gut, and maybe I will turn to the town manager, my gut is that those types of concerns should probably be brought to the high school building committee. It's the high school building committee that has a pretty wide membership. I mean, and am I correct in my assessment on this?
I think in the short term, you're absolutely right that concern should be brought to the 19-member high school building committee. So it's very well representative of all corners of the community. But to your latter point, we haven't hired an architect yet, so no studying has started yet. But once that process starts, I envision a pretty far-reaching community outreach campaign where both presentations and presentations are made and feedback is solicited. And I could see it fitting in perfectly for one of those presentations and feedback sessions to be right here at the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, but I don't think we'd want to jump the gun before they're at that stage.
No, I just wanted to, because we're all in different kind of, venues where we're in the middle of football and all this. And what I have been saying, and if it's inappropriate, please let me know. I've said, through the chairman, who definitely has expertise in his background, as well as the town manager, who's one of the 19 members on that committee, that what I've said to people, if I have any concerns or any concerns I need to pass on, those would be the two individuals, and I would leave it to both the chairman and the town manager, when appropriate, whether it's quarterly, biannually, or something else, to, I don't want to say report back, because that seems like it's, penalizing, but, now that everything's starting to kick up, and we're going to be talking about a debt exclusion, debt override, whenever you all think it's an appropriate time period to start giving some sort of feedback on that in terms of milestones, what's being discussed and where we are. And it doesn't have to be at a selectmen's meeting. It could be, an email or just, FYI thing. I know my colleagues probably are too. I'm just getting, just because school's back in session, sports are kind of going, and a lot of people saying, oh, my kid is in 7th grade, are they gonna see a new high school? That sort of a thing, when you think appropriate for updates. And then the last thing, which is
I would like it at a selectmen's meeting.
I would too, I'm not trying, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you,
Just
but I'm
wanted to
not.
add to that.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you, Mr. I appreciate that. And then the last thing, it came up at the last when we were discussing the Webb Cowart Road situation. And I know ACMi is sitting downstairs on the edge of their seats, listening to us, waiting when we're done. Again, concerns when we have a crowded chair that's full out there in the audience. There is no amplification. And that's something that we.
Yeah, there is amplification. I don't know if it's not working, but ACMi installed it a couple of years ago.
Well, what they installed a couple of years ago was that when someone came to the microphone, and if you were soft-spoken, the person sitting at the control panel that used to be back there would basically turn up the sound on the monitor that's right up there that we tell Mike Rademacher, be careful, you're too tall. But that doesn't happen anymore. And there were people, and they have been consistently. So if somebody could follow up on that, when you're at the microphone and.
I mean, that's a speaker right there. That white box is a speaker they installed a couple of years ago. So maybe it's not working. And we
I
can
don't
check
think
on
it's
that, but-
working, because I know people were sitting in the back, and we said to them, unless you come to the front, we can't ask them to speak. So if somebody could follow up on that, whether it's yourself with Mrs. Kropelka or yourself with Adam, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Mr.
Great.
Chairman, I'm all set.
Thank you so much. Mr. Dunn?
Towards Mr. Greeley's point earlier, just always remember where the source is. And I'm pretty sure that we're up to 1 lawsuit against the town dismissed and 3 allegations to be found unfounded, so there's another one coming. But I'm also reminded not to feed the trolls. But then again, I'm also reminded too that the suggestion about whether or not we should have lobbying permitted or not permitted by selectmen has been discussed in a hearing in this room, and I invite people to watch the tape. I think it's quite illuminating. Second item is on Saturday, I went to the MMA's Board of Selectmen Associational Regional or Fall Conference, and talked about, helped give a lesson on Arlington's goal-setting process, where we were held up as a standard for other people to look at and use. And one of the things I had to ask, because I didn't know, was I didn't know whether the goal-setting process we go predate, like how long has it been there? And so I called Clarissa Rowe as I was driving over. I was like, is that something like that? She's like, oh no, we've been doing it forever. I'm like, I hope I didn't wake you up. And she said, Dan, I'm in Denver. And it was at 8:15 in the morning here. So I may be in a little bit of trouble with one of our former colleagues. But anyway, it was well received, and people had a lot of questions. And I think the moderator was a guy named John Wardman, who lives here in town actually. And so he had to explain to this group that he lives in Arlington, and I am a selectman from Arlington, but in fact, we had never actually met until Saturday morning. So, anyway, yeah.
Could I, Mr. Chair, could I add, because having been here 28 years, I'm actually my 29th, and having done different forms of it, yes, we have certainly done goal setting, but the standard has been raised since Mr. Chapdelaine has taken over as town manager. And it is a model that others should certainly follow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Byrne?
I'm very grateful for all your support and no other business.
Thank you very much. I just have a couple of things. I might as well chime in there too. Just for the record, I work for an organization that also has a lobbying agenda. I don't work directly on that part of it, but you know, I'll be.
So I could have talked about lobbying. I held back from not saying anything.
I'll be damned if I'm not allowed to run. The voters can make that determination. I had two things I wanted to bring up. One is I've talked to a couple of the small business folks in town, and I'm cognizant that now that the Attorney General has passed off on town meeting business, one of them was the plastic bag ban. I think we had either an implicit or an explicit kind of commitment to do some outreach to the small business community. And while I realize it seems like it's a far way off, it's going to come up on us really fast. So I was wondering if we could kind of get that on the radar in some way, shape, or form. And just the only other piece of new business, there was a lot going on this Saturday in Arlington. And there were two firsts that I was able to attend. One was since ACA had to vacate the Gibbs, and they've been improvising a bit this year. And for the first time, they did a split open studios between the Town Hall and the Senior Center, and it worked really well. I heard a lot of great feedback around that. So, you know, kudos to the manager for all that you've done to facilitate that, as well as I know the planning department kind of oversees the senior center, but it was really well done, and the signage was really good to connect the two areas. The other was that I went down to this board approved the liquor sale license permit for the Oktoberfest at the old Schwam Mill. They were swamped. They estimated they had about 500 people come through there. They ran out of baked goods. They had to send over, they ran out of some of the beer.
They run out of beer?
I was
They
gonna say,
actually
did they run,
had
you
to,
said
they
it,
had
though.
it, they had to have
I couldn't make it.
some more brought in from Somerville. There were so many people over at the old showroom. And I mention that because I know there's been a big push where we've had the festivals in the east and in the center, and can't we do some kind of festival that really, I know we have the Greek festival every year, but can we have some kind of you know, other types of festivals in the Heights? And it was it was a really great use of the space. And the beauty of it is, sure, they made money for the mill, but more importantly, I saw a lot of people I knew, I saw a lot of people I didn't know, and I saw a lot of people who really didn't know about the mill and didn't know it was down there, and were going through and taking a look. They had it running. And the folks running the mill, they were ecstatic. They were over the moon with the turnout down there. So it was a great time. So that's all I have for new business. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Move that we move into executive session. Doug, should I read this, or?
Yep.
Okay. To conduct a strategy session in preparation for contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the town comptroller, and/or conduct contract negotiations with same and that we come out of executive session only for the purpose of adjournment.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Greeley, it's seconded by Ms. Mahan.
I just have a question.
Yes.
Is there a chance that we would come out of this with a vote, like a directive for the chair or something like that?
Mr. Hahn.
So if you're going to approve a final contract, you would need to do that in open session, but if you're just making some sort of strategic discussion now and you're sure that you're not gonna approve a contract, I think you're safe to stay in executive session.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you. We have to do this on a roll call vote, so, Mr. Dunn?
Mr. Dunn?
I only do it when she asks me.
Yeah.
Oh, you do it? Oh, you, oh, I'm sorry. I haven't done these yet.
It's quite all right then. Mr. Dunn?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mrs. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Grilli?
Aye.
All in favor? Now we can proceed.
Aye. Okay, we are now in executive session, ACMi. That means that we're off the air for the rest of the evening.